All right, my name is Tanner Ross Gregory. I am Jesus Christ. Today is May the 24th, 2026. Today I'm going to attempt to prove to you that I'm Jesus Christ, as well as each of these key points listed above. All right, so the commands of Moses for people to stone each other to death for various acts such as prostitution or homosexuality, that was a bargain with our primitive urges of violence that we would more readily adhere to a more ideal form of government. All right, Jesus Christ's crucifixion was a means by which we were subdued in our willingness to continue proceeding with those violent commands. Jesus Christ put forward some commands on marriage. Those were a bargain with our primitive urges of sexual dominion that we would more readily adhere to a more ideal form of government. All right, so what they did to me as Jesus Christ in order to subdue you in your willingness to continue proceeding with those commands is that they programmed me to become obsessed with this woman, made me see her having sex with all these people for weeks on end, made me see her getting raped, and then had me running around yelling at people for what they made me see them do. All right, so on December the 4th and December the 15th of 2020, I was made to see two separate women pregnant with my son from having had sex with different men. All right, so the date that falls directly in between these dates is December the 10th of 2020. However, because the women were already pregnant when they were revealed to me, and because a woman has her period once a month, and if she misses her period, then she's pregnant, then the date that we're concerned with is November the 10th of 2020, all right? So in the book of Revelation, it says that the dragon was waiting to consume the child the moment that he was born, who would rule all the world with an iron scepter, but that the archangel Michael took the woman and the baby into the wilderness to be kept safe for 1,260 days. Right, so 9 months from November the 10th of 2020 is August the 10th of 2021, and 1,260 days from August the 10th of 2021 is Inauguration Day of 2024. All right, and so the dragon represents necessary evil. It had already been explained to me during my crucifixion stage and is cataloged in my book with the events of my crucifixion, explaining that the dragon represents necessary evil. But the reason that the dragon represents necessary evil in this case is because they're saying it would be a form of necessary evil to kill my son before he inherit all of the power that I will receive to rule over this world as king. Okay. In Psalm 2, it does say that Jesus Christ will be king at some point, but during my crucifixion stage, they actually did have me anoint my head with oil, which I later found out after reading the Old Testament that means that at some point, yes, I in fact will be king. But I'm not just going to rule over you as king or anything like that. Myself and the alien intelligence worked for a period of a year to a year and a half developing an elaborate new libertarian constitution. So effectively what I'm going to be doing is just putting that in place and control over the government and then just being done. All right. Okay, so but the 1,260 days sounds like a countdown, and so you might be asking yourself, what is this a countdown to? So in the book of Revelation, it says that the Gentiles were allowed to march on the holy city for 42 months, but they have been assigned to the outer court. And then the first beast rules for 42 months as well, okay? And then following the first beast comes the false prophet who makes miracles of fire come out of the sky in full view of all the people. So what does this mean? It means there's a group of people who's allowed to be here for 42 months, and if they don't leave, then airstrikes are going to come down and kill them. And what they're saying is that they're going to deport every single person from this country who is not Caucasian. It has to do with the way that they guided the Caucasians people evolution. They evolved in a cold, dark environment. That's why they have white skin. So they're just naturally reliant on effective systems of government. They have to be pointed in the right direction, but they're naturally reliant on effective systems of government. All right, I'm not going to get into this right now, but in addition to that, there's a prophecy that has to do with the way that the 5 months that Noah spent in his ark correlates with the 5 months of scorpion stings in the book of Revelation to indicate that they're going to use nuclear weapons on California. And the reason why, I mean, they can use airstrikes to get them out of the country everywhere else, but the population of California is 80% Mexican, you know? So getting people out with airstrikes is not gonna be really an option. So, but in addition to that, there's also a prophecy that has to do with the Suicide Boys 1,260-day prophecy. They are the olive trees from the book of Revelation. They're also mentioned in the Old Testament, but there's a prophecy. It has to do with their album, The Long-Term Effects of Suffering. I'll just go ahead and explain it to you. So their album, The Long-Term Effects of Suffering, was released on August the 13th of 2021. On the album cover, it has someone behind bars, somebody else is in it, they're all in jumpsuits, somebody's throwing up blood into a metal toilet. You know, what does it mean? It's a cop. The other inmates found out that it was a cop and they poisoned his food. So what it means is police going into jail. And so believing that this meant that there was going to be martial law 3 days after Inauguration Day, I worked for a period of a month to 2 months only sleeping every other day, working 24 hours a day essentially to finish the book and then send it out to all the churches and church members' email addresses that I could comb off the internet and all this kind of thing. And so beginning on Inauguration Day and for 3 days, I sent out this book. And then so 3 days after Inauguration Day came and went, and there was no martial law. So I looked into the Old Testament where the olive trees were first mentioned, and it says that it mentions the final capstone being in the hand of Zerubbabel, and it also mentions this flying scroll. So effectively what it means is that the book would be finalized by 3 days after Inauguration Day and sent out to all these people, thereby setting a series of events in motion that would end result in the police going to jail. And presumably it has something to do with the war on drugs, the criminalization of prostitution, but as well, like even with Nuke in California, they're trying to blame some of that on Pizzagate. And so what they're looking to do is achieve some divine retribution, because so like in Egypt when they said, if you don't release these slaves, then we're going to do these 10 plagues and send in all these locusts and kill all these people and do all this stuff. And then immediately afterward, they came in and gave them a very elaborate new system of government. So essentially what they're doing is they're achieving divine retribution in order to galvanize the population around a new system of government.